Good morning, my fellow yogic travelers. I'm mighty glad to be alive today, and I hope that you are too, as we continue to live, laugh, love, learn, linger, and live the life we love. So I always tell people I'm a yoga teacher, not a posture teacher. And what I've learned from my teacher is not to just stand on your teacher's shoulders, but to look and see from a different angle. For me, yoga is much more luxuriant than body postures, although that's the basis from which you begin mat work. I always say hit the mat. And once you study the Dharma, which doesn't suffer in comparison to any teaching, you will learn to both equally lead and shine in front or serve humbly in the background and be fluid on both continuums. I've learned to understand the phrase, I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, I take refuge in the Sangha, as ways of understanding where can I find a place of peace within myself? Because world is filled with catastrophe, what I call the nightmare of history. So when I say I take refuge, what is it to be a refugee? It's to not have a home. It's not have a place where you feel I can rest. I'm torn away from my roots, like it says in the gospel. Birds have their nests and foxes have their holes, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. So when you take refuge in the Buddha, that means you're willing to recognize that there are enlightened qualities in the human being, and that's your Buddha nature. You can find peace in that. Then they say I take refuge in the Dharma. When you understand the way things work, the overarching harmony in the laws of nature, and the karma of cause and effect connected to that, you can take refuge in that. And most people who practice yoga would say that now that yoga is my life, it's certainly in a much better place because of the choices I've made and the intentions behind the choices to be the best I can be and give the gifts that I have to the world for as long as I can, to as many as I can. Take refuge in that. And then take refuge in the Sangha. Yes, there are a lot of people who we disagree with. There's divisiveness. There's a lot of cancel culture out there. I understand that. But the Sangha represents fellowship with the people who are on the path of truth. And that might be a hard thing to define, what is truth, but you can tell the people who are working on themselves, striving to make the effort, not to erase themselves as if they're sinners and there's something wrong with them, but they recognize that we've all learned from bad choices we made in the past, where pain, limitation, and suffering accrued as a result of that we can make different choices, and as a result of those choices, we sense freedom, lightness, joy, connectedness. And so when you find those people, the birds of a feather, you hang together, and they become part of your support system, you can take refuge in that. The next thing I would say is to remember that we all have crazy thoughts, and yet sometimes if you do a therapy of odd ideas or a therapy of your eccentric ideas, you find that there's some tremendously creative things in your own shadow world if you would just look at it from a different angle. So find the contentment that comes from discontent. We call it the dissatisfaction or the divine discontent. Like we say, you go to the yoga class and every single pose, you're not completely doing what the teacher really wants you to do. And so in some way, there's a little frustration that it's just not working out. And yet, at the end of the class, if you gave it all you can, remember I say, nothing satisfies or appeases your innermost hunger as putting out the one with all your juice behind it. And if you learn how to do that, then you find, strangely enough, even though throughout the whole class you weren't cutting it, after your shavasana, your relaxation at the end of the class, when you leave that room, you say, wow, I feel really peaceful and filled with santosh, or contentment. So I hope that you all find a way to continue to heal yourself, and remember, tell a better story. Tell a better story. Let all the things in your life which seem to be off and don't fit Use it as part of your growth, because your own soul grows through your own pathology as well as the things that you really groove on.